Okay, looks like we're live. Welcome to another Nerd Stalker interview podcast. Good morning. This is Greg Blurry, aka Social Greg, on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today, we're pleased to talk with Robert Atkinson, the president of a think tank called Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, ITIF in acronym terms, about the myths surrounding AI. AI has been in the news a lot. It's almost 410 articles a day now on AI, and people believe that AI is in of different types of realms, and then that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. A little bit about Robert. He's called in the New Republic as one of the three most important thinkers about innovation. So this is a really great topic for him to talk about. And ITIF is kind of an organization dedicated to furthering and advocating for innovation. So anyway, good morning, Robert. Thanks for joining us on Nerd Soccer Live from Washington, D.C.
Hi, Greg. Great to be here.
All right, great. Thank you. So, let's just talk about the artificial intelligence, or AI. You published a list of 5 myths, or like 5 belief myths that is out there in the public currently, and as you call it. And let's just get down to the list and just go down the list and just talk about this, okay?
Sure.
So one myth: people feel AI will destroy most jobs, and the operative word here is most. And some jobs probably will be converted, or maybe in a different way of doing it. What do you feel about this?
Well, there's really two things there. One is three things. Is how many jobs would be destroyed, how fast this is going to happen, and then what happens to those people. Okay. First of all, as much as we all sort of think technology is going very rapidly, it actually takes a long time for this stuff to happen. It really does. Even if AI is progressing, but it still takes a while. And then you've got lead adopters, so some people might use it, and then you got laggards, so it takes a long time to sort of work its way through. But even if it's sort of transformative, the real question then is, what happens to people who, you're working in a factory, and now you got an AI-based robot that can do this. What happens to those people? And the problem with the AI sort of job advocates is they believe that those people will never, ever get another job. And the reality is, what happens with AI and with robotics and all this, autonomy technology like drones and it makes us more productive. We use those savings and we spend money. So, I mean, let me ask you, if your salary was doubled, would you have a problem finding things to spend it on?
I could even retrain myself.
Exactly. You could do something else. And, so human needs are pretty infinite, really, when you think about it. The median income in the U.S. is around $50,000. I think most people would find a lot of things to spend money on if it was $200,000. So we can keep improving productivity for a long, long time before we have to worry about running out of things we want to buy. And then the other thing, too, is just, AI is good, but it's not magic yet. Just look at autonomous vehicles and that tragic case with the Tesla. We don't have autonomous vehicles at what's called level 5, and we're not going to have level 5 for 10 or 15 years maybe. And it's going to take a while for people to buy them, and this stuff is slower than people think.
Yeah, it's not as immediate. I think what you're pointing out is what people are thinking. And let me run through a couple of jobs. I wanted to kind of get your take. If you were in one of these jobs, would you retrain or think about something different? Let's talk about a server at a fast food restaurant. Retrain or start thinking about retraining?
Retrain. No. But it's not going to happen immediately. One thing that's happening now is you'll have more automated ordering. So, now you go and you tell some person what you want. An AI system can do that. You don't need to, the order can go automatically in the back. And, there is a company that's trying to roboticize the French fry stuff. They're having a hard time. It's more complicated than me. But eventually that'll happen. Who knows? But 10 years from now, maybe you still have somebody in the restaurant, a couple of people. You won't have 9 people.
Oh, you have to. In fact, I think San Francisco just recently went to some, just the order taking part, but also they're looking to start a restaurant here to kind of put hamburger. Now, like you said, this is all pretty simplistic, actually. We're not talking about, a fancy burger that has, 10 million toppings in there, and, there's a robot there that's going to like figure all that out, right? I mean, we're just talking about a simplistic burger. And
Right.
I think that's the level we're at, right? It's used as a kind of a experimental ground, if anything,
Right.
So
Right.
it's not going to take over. Okay, well, that's good. Let's go to the next myth of your 5 there. Smart machines will take over and potentially exterminate the human race. Boy, that's a dark one.
Yeah. I'm worried about my phone at night. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's going to do to me. But we can laugh about this, and really, at one level, it is kind of a joke, and it's laughable. It would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. In other words, you have people like Elon Musk from Tesla, who's warned that this is this evil genie we're letting out of the bottle, and you've got Stephen Hawking. The thing about those folks, though, is none of the folks who sort of raised this, or very few of them, are really AI scientists. They're not AI people. They're just smart people. And when you really look at AI and you look at the scenarios, the base that sort of destroy the human race, Terminator is coming scenarios based on sort of 2 faulty things. One is that this is going to happen relatively soon, and there'll be what's called artificial general intelligence and then artificial super intelligence. And we are so far away from there. I quote really one of the I think most famous or best roboticists in the world, Rodney Brooks from MIT, who says just because we went from a horse now to a internal combustion engine doesn't mean that warp drive is coming next.
That's a great one.
So, and then even if we had really super smart machines, the idea that they would be out of control, I have a little example in the thing where I call it the Colt 45 solution. You put a bullet in his brain, it's like we can still do that. So I'm not really too worried.
Oh my God, that's interesting. Like I said, that when I saw that myth, and I've read some things out there that kind of, not word for word, but kind of alluded to that myth. I was, there's a lot of doomsdayers. That's the way I could call it, because it was very dark. It was very kind of like mistrusting of a lot of things around them.
Yeah.
It was almost scary, quite frankly.
And the problem with all that, Greg, is AI is such a great technology. It's going to be really important for human progress, societal progress, economic progress. And when you get a narrative that becomes kind of a meme in the press and in the media and others, that this is a dangerous technology, I guarantee you the response will be from government and maybe even companies to slow down.
Right.
And we should be speeding up. I mean, you look at AI, for example, and cancer research and healthcare research, really going to be a big deal to really improve health. We shouldn't be slowing down, and that's really what's wrong with this sort of scaremongering.
Well, the issue also is I think, Robert, as you're alluding to, is that with government controls, it's global. It isn't specific sometimes, right? And so when you try to control one thing, you really hurt some other things that could be really good, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, so let's move on to the next one. AI will make us stupid. So I like this one because Google search is part of our lives these days, right?
Well, this is sort of based on one of the problems, I think, with tech today is there's a lot of people out there who make their living with a man bites dog story. It's like everybody loves Google, so you got to write a book about how Google makes us stupid. And the guy who does that the best is this guy, Nick Carr. And he wrote this book. I cited it in the book, but I think it's The Shallows. Maybe that's and no, The Glass Cage. That's the name of the book. Mm-hmm. And in the book, he talks about how technology takes away our skills. Like he talks about the problem with developing the automatic lawn, the power lawnmower, is that we no longer know how to use a scythe, a mechanical scythe. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to use a mechanical scythe. I plead guilty to that one. But I'm pretty happy that I have a lawnmower to mow my lawn. And it's, it's the same thing here. Yeah, you use Google search and you're happy that it does the automatic, fill in the thing. but it doesn't mean you become stupid. It means that you can use your brain to do other things, that you don't have to do these things anymore. So really, when you look at the evidence on this, it's kind of laughable. It doesn't make people stupid. It just like, for example, he talks about his other examples. He hates automatic transmissions in cars because we no longer know how to shift. Okay, I'm happy. Yeah. Most people don't know how to shift anymore, but it doesn't mean that they're not using other skills.
I don't really care if I don't know how to shift. I mean, I know how to shift, but I mean, it doesn't stress me out that automatic transmission is going to replace it. That's an interesting analogy, actually.
Well, my son, who's 24, he was complaining because he says, my problem is I'm going to be the last generation that's going to have to learn how to drive. Why did I have to learn how to drive? And his point being, at some point when you get level 5 AV cars, you won't be teaching driving to people even.
I mean, a lot of those things technology has definitely changed us. I mean, through the years, right? I mean, we don't have to go to the recent years. We go all the way back, right? And, society and life change. That's what we're going to talk about later is really some of the, economical, sociological issues that really go around the technology that also furthers it or hinders it, right? So, next one, classic myth. You read out there, it's all over the place. Is AI will destroy our privacy? Wow, that's amazing.
Well, look, there's data, and then there's AI machine learning from the data. So the data is already there. It's either there or it's not there, and then the data gets out or it doesn't get out. The AI isn't the thing. If you're worried about privacy, then there are government rules and there are frameworks and there's corporate best practices and all that stuff. Adding AI doesn't really change anything. So that's really I think the issue there. If you're worried about privacy, don't put your data there. It's not that the machine learning is adding a new kind of wrinkle to that. That's really the key thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I saw recently, I was at one of the tech shows here in San Francisco, and we have 10 million of them almost every week. I can't attend them all, but they were talking about the open web or the indie web. And it was interesting where it was more, it's your data and it's insular and it's part of a whole big framework. It was kind of interesting. That was their take on how to control privacy. It was really fascinating, actually. But anyway, that's one way to do it.
No, there are whole new business models coming up to do that, where you kind of control the data and people interrogate it without they can't see the data, but your sort of algorithm lets them interrogate it without seeing the data. There's all sorts of interesting models like that. Another one too is de-identification. There's a lot of really interesting work now. I believe Google, Microsoft were funding Carnegie Mellon on how to de-identify and be also really taking big data sets and being able to do analysis of them without having to aggregate them. Cool. So the technology's proceeding to, I think, in a good way to limit some of the privacy problems or challenges.
Yeah, maybe AI might even be able to help, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So let's go to the last myth. AI will enable bias and abuse, and the reality is, it said that AI will be less biased than humans, actually. And AI has to be used in smart cars and driverless technology, right? And they're dealing with ethical questions currently, right?
Well, the bias, yeah, absolutely. The bias question is sort of like, the AI algorithm, there'll be inherent things in it that you can't really know, and therefore it'll make be biased against race or sex or age or all these other social variables. The reality is, and I looked at a lot of the data and the research on that, humans are pretty biased people unconsciously, not even consciously, but you interview somebody and you're like, hey, you went to the same school I went to. You must be a good person. And just, little things like that humans even aren't aware of, or, hey, you ride your bike, I ride my bike, and there's been a lot of evidence that humans in just the way the human mind works is biased. And there's been some other good evidence that if you actually rely on data, it can be a lot less biased, because for a good example of that, by the way, is Uber. because the Uber algorithm is better for picking up minorities at night, where cabs are like, oh, I don't want to do that because I have bias, I have racial bias. But Uber has an algorithm, and so it doesn't have that. And so it's not to say that people who are building AI systems shouldn't be conscious about making sure that the data sets and the algorithms don't incorporate that. But I think there's an opportunity for them to be a lot less biased than the inherent human bias.
That's very interesting you point out, because I'm a market researcher, and when you do surveys, right, you try to take bias out of it, right? But the more you know about what you're trying to survey, the more bias you have. It's really an interesting circle. I asked that question of myself. How much of the technology will bias me in creating this? I just like, it blows my mind. But let's talk really quick before we end the interview. I know you have to get going. About really, technology being almost neutral, not neither good or bad, but also it has to work in terms of sociological and economical factors, right, that go around this world, right? I mean, you have thoughts about that?
So I actually think, I'm more on the side of, pretty much as a whole system, technology is just fantastic. I mean, think about where we would be 100 years ago without the technologies we have today. And we have health technologies of, heart disease, cancer, much, much better than we were before. The technologies for communication, we can communicate. I mean, you and I are communicating. My daughter was communicating with FaceTime with her friend who had moved to Japan from her elementary school, and now they're my God, and so we really need to kind of get beyond this and just say, look, in general, in toto, technology is really, really wonderful. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be abused. But I think what we really need to focus on is we need to focus on the abuse, the people or cases or companies who are abusing the technology, rather than indicting technology and being fearful of it and trying to hold it back.
No, you're absolutely right. There's there's the good, and then there's the not so good people, right, who exploit it, right?
Yeah. Like, people who are doing malware, spam, all that. Does that mean we're not going to embrace the internet? Of course not.
Right. We have to find ways of controlling it and managing it, right? Yeah. So anyway, thanks for your time, Robert. I know you're very busy, and it's been a short week because of 4th of July, as we were talking about earlier. But really quickly before you leave, why don't you talk about ITIF and what it is?
Yeah, so we're a think tank. We just celebrate our 10th anniversary. What's a think tank? These are pretty complicated questions. Policymakers, whether they're a mayor or a governor or president or Congress, people all around the world, it's really interesting. Is pretty much every country's grappling with these same questions. How do I grow a technology business? How do I transform government with technology? How do I make sure I've got good broadband? And so what our role is to help policymakers understand these questions. We write a lot of papers, op-eds, do events on pretty much any technology you can imagine. We've got a new report coming up on sort of when government can access information, the whole kind of NSA, Apple case, for example. Another report coming up looking at data, use of data and data innovation in education, how that can make education better. Another really interesting report coming out next week on how Internet of Things, IoT, can really help people with disabilities, blind people, deaf people. That IoT is this really pretty important technology to make people's lives better with disabilities. So anyway, that's the kind of work we do, really trying to be pro-technology and help people understand it.
No, it's great. I think, I'm a person that likes to read it, look at multiple sides of an issue or an argument or whatever. And I think it just brings another face of something that we have to consider when we talk about AI and technology in general, right?
Yep.
So, Anyway, thanks a lot for your time, Robert. I really appreciate that. And, have a great weekend. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. That was Robert Atkinson, the president of the think tank Information Technology and Information Foundation, ITIF, which follows advancing technology like AI, as he said earlier. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg, on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Thanks again, Robert. Have a great weekend.
Greg. Take care.